How about now? You all good, Twitch? Welcome to the Civitai.com Twitch channel and this stream. Great to have you all here watching. Let me know, please, in the chat if you have any issues hearing me or our guest that we're going to have on today. Just shout out in the chat if there's any issues. Noise levels. Sounds good. First time chatter. Thank you so much. Thanks for, I appreciate that. Awesome. So let's get started. If you're not familiar with what this is, if you've never been to the Civitai.com Twitch stream before, I'm Ali. I'm one of the community managers at Civitai and one of our Twitch hosts. We have a Twitch a stream where we kind of show off a diverse range of content throughout the week. We have Civitai office hours on Mondays and Wednesdays, where you're welcome to come along and I'll answer questions. You can, we just have a chat about the state of the site, raise your bugs, raise your issues, and just a kind of a casual chat about Civitai, where you can talk about anything with me that you want to bring up. The rest of the week is Tyler, our content creator. He has a video stream, kind of a technical stream about Stable Diffusion video, and then he brings on a guest on Fridays, and the guest has been until now focused on Stable Diffusion video, but that leaves Tuesdays open. So Tuesdays is going to become a slot for us to invite members of the community on, people who have done something special, and we want to find out a little bit more about them, find out more about their projects. So that's what this is going to be. Today, specifically, we're here to talk about Pony Diffusion version 6 XL. And I'm quite nervous, to be honest, because I am a huge fanboy. You can tell I didn't own these before the stream, but yeah, that's what it's done to me. Pony Diffusion has pretty much rekindled my love for Stable Diffusion. We had a year of, quite samey content resource-wise coming out. Not to say that we haven't had excellent models from our creators over that time. There have been some fantastic ones, and I've had a lot of fun, generating in the past year. But there's something about Pony, the Pony model specifically, which has taken my enthusiasm, and I'm sure a lot of the communities, to a kind of a new level. So what is Pony Diffusion? Pony first dropped, January, start of the year, and I instantly saw that there was potential here for something different than we've had over the past few months. And I petitioned Justin, the CEO Justin, to consider making Pony a new base model. Now, that's significant because, up until now, base models have been SDXL, they've been SD 1.5. We haven't had a fine-tuned model which has become its own base. But I felt that Pony was significantly different, and it was going to have a huge impact on the community. So it became a base model. First fine-tuned to become a base model. And it has phenomenal stats. So let's have a look down below. I've put some of the stats there. We can run through them. 19,000 thumbs up. First off, great engagement from the community. Overwhelmingly positive reviews. 15,000 reviews. That's and 99% of them are thumbs up. So that's fantastic. 197,000 downloads, not to be sniffed at. And the big one for me, this is just insane, is 36 million on-site generations. So you can come to Civitai.com. If you don't have an account, you can create a free account, and you can start generating with Pony Diffusion for free. And 36 million images have been generated with this version of Pony Diffusion up till now. So just huge, huge. You can see the buzz tips of over 500,000, which is pretty incredible for a model as well. Now, the interesting stats for me are the white text inside the purple background there. This is looking at all the models in the Pony ecosystem. So as soon as Pony dropped, people started to merge it with other models, just like we've done since Stable Diffusion came along. And we've had 15 million downloads across the whole Pony ecosystem of merged models, and a phenomenal million images posted to the website. So it's hugely popular, and you know, it deserves all these fantastic accolades, these stats. Yeah. So to talk a little bit more about what this is and how we got to this point, I have got with me AstraliteHeart, the Pony Diffusion creator, and this um, Twitch stream, this interview, has been on the cards for quite a long time. We first talked about getting AstraliteHeart on, back in um, March, maybe February, because we just knew we needed to know more. But unfortunately, schedule-wise, it's been difficult for me, and now it's happening. And I'm super excited because I really want to learn a little bit more about what went into creating this and how I can make my own. I know it's not possible, but I dream. So, AstraliteHeart, welcome to the stream. First question I have for you is: can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Because there's an air of mystery to you. You published the model itself under your business name, which is Purple Smart AI. So there's already a kind of a layer apart. You've set yourself apart from the model. You have your own Discord, I know that, where you give some updates. And you are active in our Discord. But for many people, we just refer to you as the Pony Guy. We don't know anything about your background, whether it's in machine learning or AI. And your status is just practically godlike in the community. So tell us a little bit more, if you can, about who you are and your background.
Everybody, I hope you can hear me well. And thank you for inviting me here. Thank you, Ali. My ears are burning right now from all of the compliments. I really appreciate it. And honestly, I think being the pony guy, that's totally fine. So, I think that a pretty good summary of who I am. But I'm a professional software engineer, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, 20 years or something. There's probably a very high chance that you're using some of the stuff that I've created in the last 2 decades right now, or in your everyday life. But I am also, I guess, kind of professional AI researcher. That's probably right. And I got hooked up when OpenAI released their first, not the first, GPT-2, when they released it. And when AI Dungeon came out, my mind was just blown. And I wasn't doing any machine learning before, but the moment I saw that, my mind was expanded, and I thought this is the coolest thing ever. And that's kind of the beginning of this whole journey. And I think that's how it started.
Perfect. Yeah, that was one of my questions actually, was how did you get, I think we all remember how we got into Stable Diffusion. And I came into it a little bit later than that, but you seem to have been a pretty early adopter. And it helps already being kind of in the space. So fantastic. You had a head start on all of us.
Yeah, kind of.
The big question. Now, I did have a sign up sheet where people could submit their questions to us. And I think 90% of the questions were this first one, which I'm going to ask you right now, is why? Why? What inspired you? Because there have been previous versions of your models that are on Civitai. So there's a Pony Diffusion for SD 1.5. There's Pony Diffusion version 5 for 2.1. But this one is different. This one is a much greater undertaking. And why? What's been driving you?
Oh, wow, that's such a loaded question. And I do love version 6. I think let me start with that. It's a great model. Also, I kind of feel like the moment I I finished training it and I played a little bit with it, I was like, okay, done. Let's think about the next model. And this has been, I think, the mindset since the beginning. Every model in the Pony Diffusion lineup kind of been trying to learn and build up on top of that. And version 6 is actually, I think, the model number 8, because there have been a couple of intermediate models. There is 5.5, and I think there was 2.1. I don't even remember. It's been
Yeah.
happening for quite a long time. And, I've hit all the major stable diffusion versions, 1.4, 1.5, 2.1, and
Even
XL
2.1.
now.
Wow.
Yeah, and that worked pretty good. I know that community didn't really like that model much, but V5, which I think this is where Pony Diffusion started to become more general use model, and especially 5.5, which was just slightly improved version, which was 2.1
Hmm.
based. It worked really well. Like, so I personally have a lot of kind feelings for 2.1 lineup, but people don't like it, so
Sure.
that's fine. But yeah, Pony Diffusion has been around for a very long time. I think we were the second fine tune to ever be created, because when Stable Diffusion was initially dropped, the first one was Waifu Diffusion, and then after a little bit we had Pony Diffusion. I remember Emad actually talking about us, which made him, I think, a little bit uncomfortable at the time, but that was fun. And uh, I think it just the timing was right,
Hmm.
and the reason why V6 was such a bigger and better model is that, or again, I don't remember, year, 2 years, 2 years by now, I think
Yeah.
I've been just building on top of previous models and just trying, to push it a little bit further. And then I think it's just the first time everything clicked
Sure.
and it had enough traction to get outside of the pony community, and people used it and people liked it. So again, I don't think there's like a singular thing that made it into what it is today, but more
Right.
of just, things have been happening one after another, and we reached critical mass, and it's happened.
Just stepping stones to this point. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you touched on this a little bit in the last question, your answer there. It is a very good general purpose model. I mean, some people would say it's just for naughty stuff, but it's not. There's a lot of really good concepts that you can get from it. But you've stuck with the pony name, and I've always wondered whether you considered calling it something a bit more generic, because pony is going to put a lot of people off. There's connotations of furries there, and a lot of people aren't happy with that, and they're not comfortable with that. So, did you ever think about for this version or any version, I guess, changing direction with the branding of it a little bit?
No,
No.
nothing is going to change. It's going to be pony forever, and I think the cat out of the bag now. And if you don't like the name, if it's okay, that's fine. But I think the community generally knows what pony is,
That's
and
true.
it's like, it's a short, easy to remember name. And there are a few reasons why I will keep the name. I think the simplest one to explain is uh, this is kind of out of respect for the community, because this model would never exist if it wasn't for the community. And it started as a pony model. The community around it is the pony community. And without help from all of these people, and
Hmm.
I'm talking financial and just emotional support, or just being around and being excited about building something cool, there would be no version 6. There would be no version 5 or even version 4. So I own this, well, let's call it success, I guess, to the community. And at the bare minimum, everything else aside, it will continue to be pony just out of respect of
Sure.
that. But I also, and this is, I just find it very hilarious when I hear people, and especially serious people, like when business people talking about pony. It's just so funny to me. And even just listening to Civitai, which like streams, and you guys mentioning it, it just brings smile to my face. I think it's fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right that most people now, just because of the fame that is achieved, they understand that it is a general model, and that yeah, Pony is a bit of a misnomer. So I'm glad that you're sticking to your guns though, and that you're not gonna bow to the pressures to rename it. That's awesome.
I think you will see a lot of that. There are going to be a lot of follow-ups on that as we talk.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now I'm going to prompt a little bit in the background as we're going through the next set of questions. I'm generating locally for all those watching. I'm not using the Civitai website because a range of reasons. One of them is that it's kind of peak usage time for us on Civitai right now. Generation times can be quite long this time of day, so I'm just going to run them locally. And the reason why they're covered right now, I'm going to generate and then I'm going to uncover this because I'm sure you're all aware Pony can produce, or quite often produces, quite sexy images. Um, so even with the some of the prompting syntax set to safe, I'm not taking any chances. I don't want to get our Twitch channel banned, so I will generate and then I will expose the safe ones. But yeah, like you were just saying there, great general use model, does very good ponies, but it also does excellent everything else. The only thing that's kind of lacking in my opinion, is landscapes. Scenes without people in them, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But the next thing I'd like to get into is the technical aspects of the model, the challenges that you had when you were making it. First question: data set. So training. How was it trained? This is, I believe, now I have a layman's understanding of training and fine tuning, so you have to explain it like I'm 5 or even younger. Um, I understand that it's based on SDXL, but so much of the training knowledge has changed that it is practically a different model. Can you tell me a little bit more about the process, collecting the data set and actually training it? How was it done?
Absolutely. There are a couple of different things. I get the general gist of what the model is and the lineup of models, and the separate topic of why is it so different from everything else. And I guess let's talk about the elephant in the room. Like, why is it so different? That was kind of not intentional.
Oh,
I mean, I'll take it. I really like the fact that it's a base model now. It's great. It's definitely helped with outreach dramatically, but it wasn't a goal to make it different, and I would rather prefer it to be more similar to base model, because right now the problem is, as much as I'm enjoying thousands of lores created for
mm-hmm.
Pony, none of the standard tooling works for it.
Right,
Animate diff doesn't work for it. A lot of adapters do not work for it. Various control nets, none of that is, like, some of that is functional. Open pose kind of works a little bit, but it's bad. And I
right,
would rather stick to all the standard tooling, and I definitely do not want to, like, retrain everything by myself
sure,
and or rely on the community to do all of the work, because I guess air quotes messed up. But the problem why there's not that many Excel-based models that are high quality, and there are definitely some good ones, but if you just look at just general landscape, there are a lot of merges, there are a lot of lores, but there are not that many fine-tunes that were created from scratch. And Pony
right,
Diffusion is
right,
fine-tuned, right? We just take a stock Excel model and then we train it for very, very long time. Like, a lot of compute, we throw it on the model, and that we hope eventually it will work. The
sure.
problem is it doesn't usually work. And that's why there are not that many fine tunes. Is you will try doing something and it just looks bad, or it doesn't train well enough. So before V6 actually was produced for the first time, and I looked at the model, I said, oh, that's something that can be released. I think I ran maybe, I don't know, 10 different experiments, and they were either fine-tuned on smaller amount of data, or maybe fine-tuned that were on the full data set but a shorter amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of cranks that you can move around. You can change the learning rate, you can change duration of training, you can pick different schedulers. And there is some level of understanding in the community of what to do when you want to train LoRa, for example. But only few people ever trained full fine-tune, so there's just no information of what needs to be done. So you have to experiment, and every experiment takes, I don't know, like 2 weeks. So you run an experiment, and then you pray that whatever you did is good.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, like many, many times.
But
and I tried.
I was going to say there's a cost involved in that. When you're training LoRa's, it's not an issue. They train in 10 minutes, but when you have to wait 2 weeks for something to see the results of your actions, that must be incredibly frustrating. When it doesn't turn out.
It is extremely frustrating, and out of this 10 experiments or so that I did, majority of them completely failed. Like everything that I tried wasn't working that well. And only at some specific set of configurations, the models actually started to show some promise. And unfortunately, one of the things that happened as I was figuring out this numbers and the settings and whatever is the right training process, is that I cranked the learning rate. And learning rate, it's more or less how much you move around when you train the model.
Okay.
So if you move around by a lot, it doesn't mean that you're not training well, but you're definitely going away from whatever the model originally had in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a mistake, because again, like there are not much other models to compare. Maybe it would have worked with smaller learning rate. I don't know, like, but it did work, and it worked okay. And unfortunately, there is kind of a second annoying part, is that when you train the model, it doesn't look good at first. So you look at it, and it's bad, and it's bad, and it's bad. At some point, you hit this like magic number of images that you fed it, and number of times you show that images, and the learning rate. And then, like literally, you train it for 2 weeks or maybe a week, and then within a day, it goes from bad to kind of good. So when I first saw that, I'm like, okay, we have something.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Let's try to actually do a full run. And the full run takes about 3 months. So you start training model with whatever the best settings you think, and then you just leave it there for 3 months, and you just make sure that it doesn't crash, or your computer turns off or whatever, like because you lost electricity and backups didn't work, whatever. So it's a very long and annoying process. And in the end, after the 3 months, we had 6, which was functional but weird. And I would take functional but weird over not having something. And because it was such a huge improvement over 5.5, I said, okay, we're going to release it. People are very excited. I've been training it for a very long time. It does generate really cool images. So let's get it out. And it's kind of the reason why it's this weird.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So wait, let me just clarify there. You said the full training took 3 months. Now, I'm led to believe that you didn't use Google Colab. How are you training these? Like, we've got questions in the chat as well. 3 months on what GPU?
Yeah, Colab is a little bit underpowered for that. So, man, this is another problem. We trained on a custom built, let's call it a server, that had at a time 3 800 like real big boys
Mm-hmm.
GPUs with 80 gigabytes of VRAM, and we had to 3D print cooling for them because they are server cards, and they don't have active cooling on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty beefy machine, and unfortunately, getting to that point and figuring out what you actually need also took quite a long time, because we tried a lot of different things. I was renting very different machines on Vestai, for example, which is the service where you can basically rent out a computer in someone's garage. And sometimes people build extremely expensive and very powerful computers. But what we realized is it would be really nice to train on consumer cards,
Mm-hmm.
like 4090s and whatever.
Yep.
But I think NVIDIA anticipated it, so they made it really hard. And there was some news, I think, in the last month or two that there are now hacked NVIDIA drivers that allow you to improve the GPU to GPU memory bandwidth.
Okay.
And this is the problem that we were hitting heavily, because we would get, a machine with maybe 14 or 12 3090s, 4090s, and we'll try to train on it, and it will just not work as fast as a much smaller machine, but with better bandwidth, just because GPUs need to talk to each other, and that wouldn't work. So we had to downgrade in terms of raw compute, because 800, as amazing as it is, I think it's like roughly 4090 if you just look at like how
Yeah.
the GPU itself is.
Yeah.
But the cross GPU bandwidth was such critical, especially because it wasn't that bad for previous models, but
Mm-hmm.
XL it absolutely requires massive amount of bandwidth between GPU.
Sure. Big question coming from all that is the price. I know that you do have a Discord, you do have thousands of supporters. Um, did you self fund the building of this box, or was there some like a crowdfunding sort of element to this? To
18,000 users, I think, today. So very, very proud of that. That's another big number that I like. It's not as amazing in like 35, 36 million images generated, but that is my tiny world that I really like.
Absolutely.
Uh, but to answer your question, we have subscriptions and we have sponsorship, but all of that is used for just the inference network. So very early on, when I think V2 was finished, and it was very clear that majority of users have no ways of running it, both in terms of compute and, well, it was very early on. Like, I don't even think automatic existed, or it was in the very early stages. So technical know-how was critical, and majority of normal users, they don't have it. So we really wanted to give people ability to experiment and to play with the model, and we launched the Discord bot and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that requires a lot of GPUs in the background. So we said, okay, if someone wants to donate, then that would be great. But that has been a completely separate thing from the training. And oh boy, the trading has been exceptionally expensive,
Mm.
because aside of this machine, which I don't know the exact cost at this point. I think it's like, I don't know, $50,000-$60,000 for the training machine alone.
Wow.
We kind of have to do this multiple times by now, because the data set is so large that you uh, have to have it somewhere.
Right.
So
Right.
there is another machine, or actually a server rack, that hosts the storage, and it hosts another 10 or so more consumer GPUs, because uh, before you even start trading, you have to do a lot of data processing. And I
Right.
think that's one of the reasons why Pony is uh, so strong, is that 80% of time actually spent in the prep stage. So
Right.
all the prep time we need to get to the training. Fundamentally, that also just requires a lot of investment. And
Mm.
if you ask me why, so I'm paying for all of this, or most of this,
Sure.
out of my pocket. We got very, very lucky that at some point, I think around version 4, uh, we found a sponsor who remains anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and basically provided the GPU training machine to us, which I think that was one of the most important steps in the whole history of Pony Diffusion. So my gratitude
Wow.
to that person who is hopefully listening
That's
is
fantastic.
absolutely enormous. Yeah. That's helped a lot. But to get there, we had to go through like first 5 versions of training and collecting data with pretty much no support. If you ask me why, I don't know. I'm probably just dumb. It's a fun thing to do. And I keep saying to myself, good thing I'm not a cars guy, because just imagine how much it costs to run like a fancy car. I'm just spending a fraction of that on something that's cool and makes a lot of people happy. So, it's all relative.
Absolutely. That's a good way to look at it. Let's put it in perspective. Yeah, it's a hobby that's it's really making a lot of people happy. I've had countless hours of enjoyment from Pony. So yeah, I think a lot of the community feel the same way. So yeah, fantastic. And thank you very much to your anonymous benefactor. That's huge that they would support you in that way. That's awesome. And speaking of the data, so um, this was one of my questions for later on, but you've already brought it up, and I think I can segue into this one. You talked about data prep and controversies. Now, I was completely unaware that there were any controversies with the Pony dataset. I've since learned that there are some pretty big beefs, um, including one with 4chan. And indeed, when I advertised this stream on our socials, uh, many of them received comments, salty comments about the dataset, and I was quite taken aback. I was quite surprised. Um, I didn't realize that there was this kind of undercurrent of beef going on. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Explain to us, why are people upset, specifically with the
Oh,
dataset?
absolutely. But do want to maybe go back in time a little bit, because I think we can discuss a little bit of kind of history, and we've skipped over that, and that will eventually get to the whole 4chan thing.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, yeah,
Yeah,
let's
perfect.
let,
Do that.
let's roll it back for a little bit, and let's talk about like why the hell this whole thing exists, and why Pony is a thing.
Sure.
And I answered a couple of things about it, but and this may be a little bit of surprise, but not to the people who've been following the project very early on, is that as much as I like the whole text to image thing, that's never been the end goal. And maybe things are changing a little bit right now, but it's always been like a tiny stepping stone to build things. And if you remember the whole like stable diffusion part, when I was telling like, oh, I knew about it early on and all of that. So the reason why I even got into stable diffusion was because I was absolutely fed up with StyleGAN. And StyleGAN, for those of you who don't remember or ever cared to learn about it, is a thing that happened before stable diffusion, and it was built by NVIDIA, or I think 3 versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the model, it's another machine learning model that was responsible for all of the early fake people portraits. So if you remember when Twitter started to have people who like say complete nonsense, and they have faces that seems kind of human, but like the eyes are slightly off, or the eyes are always in the same position. So that was Stalga.
Yep.
And oh boy, it was frustrating working with Stalgan, and switching to stable diffusion was just like so amazing, because with StyleGAN, you basically have 2 models that are competing. You have a model that creates things and a model that judges things. And if you mess up one of this, nothing works. So like you have to do twice amount of work and pray that this works. But the reason, oh, and by the way, you probably have some of my
I
early StyleGAN stuff
I
that you can show.
do. Give me 1 second, and I will bring that up here. Let me just clear off some of this. And so this is your style GAN stuff, your early, these ones here, early style GAN experiments.
Yep, yep. And you can see that, yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is not bad. This is like well, okay, this is not as good as the first one. But yeah, you can see that this is kind of like not even stable diffusion level.
Right.
And this was after 2 years of non-stop research and trying to build something that works. So
Wow.
it wasn't going that great. But the reason why all of it exists is because the end goal, and
Mm-hmm.
the end goal that existed from the very beginning, has always been creating a character that can talk to you. So
Okay.
I needed faces that can be animated and they can blink and open their mouths. And uh, probably someone will say like, well, okay, we have tech for that, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we didn't really have tech for that. Like at that time,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have all of the talking face stuff that we have right now. We didn't have things like character AI, and that's what I was trying to build and struggling with style again to even get to anything functional. And if you now go to the YouTube video,
Mm-hmm.
you can show this is the thing that I was trying to build, and it's not very pretty, but mind you, this is from 4 years ago or something.
For the time that it was created, I've watched this through. This is phenomenal, and uh, I'd be happy to use this right now as a product. Um, Let me skip on a little
Well,
bit
see,
here.
oh yeah. There are a lot of like weird setup in the beginning, but yeah, this was like
I'm doing
way
great. It feels
before
like every time I
characters
switch apps,
AI
I always have a smile on
existed.
my face, and I feel
So
like I finally
like
belong
very
here.
early attempts.
Wow.
I don't think we can hear
Ah, okay.
the
Yeah, that's
audio,
what I thought when you said you're
but
from Canada.
but
And then you went to
there
learn
is
about me.
a okay-ish voice
Yeah,
from a character.
I was quite impressed with it.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, and the reason why it's so amazing, and this is now we get the full circle. We're going back to 4chan.
Mm-hmm.
Is this whole voice thing exists because of 4chan, and this is what got me into machine learning together with AI Dungeon very early on because. And this is kind of to answer your other question, like why the hell Pony is a thing. Uh, uh, for the voice specifically, there existed a project, and it still exists after all of these years. It's a little bit less active, but there was a project called Pony Preservation Project. And this was a collection of people who were machine learning engineers, who were just people working with data. And what they did, they collected all the voice lines from the show, and then they trained text to speech models.
It,
And the one that I'm using specifically was done by a person called Cookie. And for the time being, these models were really, really good. And even right now, what they do that majority of other text to speech is not capable, maybe aside from the OpenAI presentation that happened literally yesterday,
mm-hmm.
ability to have this very emotional voices. Because if you look at normal text to speech, it's kind of like boring.
Flat
Uh,
and droning. Yeah.
yeah. And if you're having like better ones, that maybe you get this like deep voice from like a person with an English accent for reading books, which works really well. But nothing really of this emotional scale. And there are also a lot of voices that are high pitched, a lot of voices that are fast. Even today, a lot of models or majority of models actually struggle with it. So that was super exciting project. And when I saw the early GPT-A dungeon, when I saw this text to speech stuff, I was like, wow, this is mind blowing. What if we get it all together and it will work out? And the other thing that also existed, which I was originally unaware, but as I started to dig through the data, is that apparently people who are into Pony created so much content. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insane. So when you try training things like this, images, text to speech, just general like GPT-2 text completion, you need training data, and this is like the source of everything. You need a lot of training data. So for anime people, it's very easy. There are like tons of anime. Everybody created a lot of anime.
Yep.
For furries, it's harder, but the community has been around for I don't know 30 years, 40 years, more, very long
Sure.
time. And then you look at Pony, and surprisingly, Pony has an equal amount of content as everything else. So this is crazy. And the reason it was so exciting because I'm like, oh, I can find my own area
Yep.
to carve and take all of this cool data and build something cool, and it will be different from the rest of the world.
Sure.
So it all started kind of with 4chan, but now, oh, I don't know if these people like me anymore. I think there've been a rift, but source of it is very simple,
Hmm.
and this is a removal of artists from the data set.
Ah, okay.
So right. You may remember when 1.4, 1.5 came out,
Hmm.
there were all of these conversations about having or not having artist names.
Yep.
And uh, I'm trying to remember the name of that artist with very epic, like,
Greg Rutowski.
fantasy.
Rutkowski.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. See, I tricked you into saying his name because
I
I
know.
actually don't remember how to pronounce it.
I don't know either. I probably murdered his name. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when this whole thing was happening, well, I guess first of all, why do we need artist names? Artist names are exceptionally strong uh, technique that you can use to introduce bias in your model generation and on multiple levels. Because first, when you use them, they introduce quality. So obviously, you generally pick artists that have very nice art style. So by default, you get really, really good quality. Now, then you get generally same domain, because if you want an epic like fantasy setting, you're probably going to pick up an artist who is doing similar style. And then you have the micro style. So, if you like how specific artist draws faces or something, right? So you have a very strong bias to use that artist. So you put an artist and you kind of get what you want. If you don't have artists, you get this blend of all artists and general quality of all the illustrations in the data set.
Okay.
And especially early models didn't really have a good way of doing that. So you get kind of very limited what you have.
Sure.
So artists are exceptionally powerful. And then if you have artists, you can start combining artists. So you can have like 5 people who are really good at drawing cool fantasy epic scenes. And then you meld them all together and you have something unique. Doesn't represent specific style, but it's still very high quality and it's still biased towards whatever you want it to. So that is something that's been used in Stable Diffusion world for a very long time.
Yep.
It works really well. And Pony doesn't have it. So completely absent from the model. And also artist names are very natural in the ways that you build models. If you train on tags, you just put all of the tags that include artist names, and then you just query the model with artist names, and it just works. So I had to go out of my way to specifically try to recognize all artist names and remove them from the data set and make sure that you cannot use them in the model. And people really don't like that, which I totally get it. But there are 3 reasons why I've done that. And I don't think people believe me. People think that there is some hidden agenda.
Yeah.
Uh, People think that okay, we'll talk about this later. But there are just a lot of weird stuff. But when people ask me why, and I've said it so many times, it's just crazy. I'll repeat it here once again, but I'm getting so tired of saying the same thing. There are 3 reasons why I did that. So the first reason is when I just started doing the Pony model, and I didn't want to build just a model. I wanted to build something cool and interesting,
Okay.
and I was thinking about what am I building? And the answer for that was I'm building a tool that would allow people to be creative. I want to build a tool that allows people to do something cool. And I do not want to build a tool that will just allow people to replicate other people's style. Just
Okay.
because this is the way I want this tool to be. It's like there's no extra layers to that. I just wanted it to be like this. And you can argue about this and talk like, well, can you use super artists and but again, I understand the criticism,
Hmm.
but I just didn't want the tool to be a style replication tool in the first place.
Okay.
And if you allow people to get access to artists, yes, some people will use super artists. Majority of people we'll just stick to one artist, just build a million images of the same style. And this is kind of my second point, is that I think that's just generally uncool to do.
Okay.
Replicating style of specific artists, and this is not even something that's copyrightable. Like style is not copyrightable.
Right.
But I
Exactly.
still, just for myself, I don't think this is good. Like I think about people who spent years developing their own style, developing something that is unique for them, and then we just rush in, copy the thing that makes them different, then just make it accessible to everybody. If other people want to do that, if people want to trade Loras to do that, I'm fine with that. That's totally fine. It's just I don't want to be the guy who does it. And I understand that, people have been doing that and it's not that technically complicated. I
Yeah.
just don't want to be the person who did that. And that's fine,
Yeah.
I guess,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but not
That's
for a lot of people.
yep.
Uh,
Makes sense to
and the
me.
third thing, like if you don't believe in my first two explanations, that's fine, but let me give you a different angle. And this angle is that we still have no idea if there are any legal issues around using artist names, which is hilarious because I was reading comments to one of the articles that I have on Civitai, and there was a comment saying like, "Hey, all the lawsuits happened. We now know that it's totally fine to do that, and just go and use artists." And I'm like, my brother in Christ, what are you talking about? The laws are like no one knows
Right.
what is the right thing right now. And not only like generally, then you have different countries and you have different like other legal entities. So I'm in California.
Okay.
California has like all kind of laws, and some of them are specifically around artist representation. And there hasn't been any lawsuits around that.
Yep.
And do I want to be the guy?
The yeah. Right. The first
Maybe
one.
not. Like
The test
first one.
case. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, not with already my bank account in the red. So
You've spent all your
uh,
money on GPUs and training. So yeah.
right,
Absolutely.
but people are unhappy with that, uh, uh, and there are kind of different a set of different mindsets. I think one mindset is there is a group of people who think that if only that one thing in the model would have been done differently, then model would have been better, or it would be perfect model or whatever. And I hear that, but also it's kind of um, so Pony exists as a combination of technical limitations and decisions made around it. It's not like some crazy clever thing that I've designed and then executed. It's more like a constant struggle to get something functional.
Okay.
And every time I change a crank, may completely collapse. So I think this perception of if only that was one thing, whatever that thing was different, it would have been better. I mean, maybe, but I honestly don't know. And to reinforce that point is I tried moving that crank a little bit,
Yep.
and version 5 and 5.5 didn't have any artist's information at all. So I took it all and I completely removed it. And what happened is because you lose such a strong uh, anchor in your latent space, it just turns all the styles into this like singular mush. So
Mm-hmm.
5 and point 5 have very noticeable visual style. It's kind of this like soft shading, but slightly not good. So
Yep.
you have to really fight with it to get something out of the model. And I was really unhappy with that. So what V6 does is that it takes artists and it puts it in a form that's inaccessible to users, but I have a way to experiment with that and play around with that and try things, which is also a controversy on its own. Hilariously, is that some people are angry that I have access to this data. Like, you're not giving this to us, but you are secretly playing with
Right.
all the artists locally. And I'm like, I don't know what to say, because you'll be surprised that when you're running any kind of product, project, whatever, you have access to like tons of information that you're not supposed to give to anyone else. Like, if you're running a
Right.
website, you have access to the database where all the user information is there, but it doesn't mean that you have to give it to anyone. So
Right.
that's just how things are. You have your experimental stuff, you play with it, you test it out, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Unfortunately, in case of V6, there were some stuff that I hoped will work, didn't really work. But I think at some point, and this is the juiciest part of this whole controversy, people started, I think it was by accident, they started finding the 3-character, what they called hashes
Yep.
of artist names or character names. And I think a lot of people thought that they found some gold mine and they figured out how I do this. And it also got a lot of people angry because I think some of this air quotes hashes corresponded to characters.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so they're like, oh, you're removing characters from the model because you don't like them or something. And again, like, this whole model is built on top of limitations.
Sure.
If you found something in the whole like millions of images that I messed up, and I think at least for one of two of those characters, they were confused with artists. So
Okay.
like, I'm really sorry that this happened, but there are literally millions of images,
Right.
and I don't know, tens of thousands of characters, and if there are like 3 or 5 or 10 that got tangled up in the
Mm-hmm.
whole process, something to be fixed for sure. But this is just like, things happen at this scale. You cannot ensure that doesn't happen
That's
at all. Same with, there are a few artists that actually got through the filters, which the things that makes me the most disappointed is that there are some weird names that got through. Again, at this scale, things happen.
sure.
But because people think that they found what I did, which by the way, it's not what people think. I do not hash artist names. It doesn't work like this. It's a very different technique. But what happened is, because of whatever I did, we formed a somehow stable latent space. So basically, the whole universe of possibilities is encoded in a set of numbers, right? It's a vector in latent space.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walk around this latent space, you get your cute ponies or you get whatever. So being in that space defines what the image you get.
Okay. Yeah.
And in order for us to get into the space, we have our text encoders that exist in the model. So the text encoder will take a string, something cute pony, and point a place into latent space. So that's how the Stable Diffusion models work. And if you start putting random strings into the text encoder, I think most models will kind of point it to some region that makes sense, but it's
Okay.
much stronger in Pony just because of the way it was trained. So if you keep saying the same string, it will, generally point to the same location again and again and again for strings that make no sense. 3 characters, whatever. But I think a lot of people got misguided by that, and they thought that this is a way to prove that I was wrong and find that one thing that would fix everything.
Yep.
And they started crowdsourcing these 3 character strings and trying to map them to characters and to artists. And it's a massive effort. And I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they spent more time and money on the whole process than I spent on training Pony.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
it's wild, it's crazy, and I understand the sentiment. I
Yep.
understand that a lot of people want artists. I truly understand that. Unfortunately, it's just not the thing that I want to build. So I'm happy there are people who are passionate about this.
Mhm.
I wish them all the best in their attempts, even if they're misguided, because at worst, you will learn so much about how these models are built and how
Sure.
they function. So I think it's net positive, but boy, am I tired of answering this question
Right. Right.
again and again and again. Oh,
Well, hopefully this puts it
anyway,
to.
sorry.
No. Hopefully this gives some
Uh,
clarity and puts it to bed. Uh, for once, you can direct them here. But speaking of that, that seems pretty stressful for you, to have to deal with that. And that's my next question, actually, and it kind of skips ahead a little bit. But how has this, um, overall the reception's been fantastic, but how has this shaped your approach to work that you may do in the future? Is this something that you're taking into consideration, or is there anything you can do to kind of knock this on the head before you move forward in the future?
Right, right. So, and do you mean in terms of just general feedback, or do you mean what people ended up using model for? What
I'm
part of that is specifically interested for you?
I think the part the part of I think I wonder if it's changed your approach at all. Have you know the people are you say that they're misguiding what they're doing? Has it had an effect on what you're going to do in the future with your possible models which may be coming out? Have you looked at what they're doing and thought, I might
Mhm, mhm.
do this or this different?
Um, well, I think all of these people are right in one thing, and this is where, like, I've admitted it again and again, is that V6 lacks style control. This is absolutely true. Uh, you can try to kind of describe style, you can say like sketch or 3D, and it will react to this very broad categories, but it doesn't really well beyond that. And all of the things that I tried didn't work. And with no artists to rely on, or with no super artists to rely on, you have to use Loras.
Yeah,
Now, I am
right.
obviously super happy that there are so many Loras and everybody are building them and everybody are trying to build one. It helped tremendously with exposing the model to larger set of people.
Yep.
But it's so popular because people are trying to fix an issue with the model, which 100% exists. So for V7, the two primary things that I'm trying to do, there are like a lot of stuff happening, but one is captioning, but the other one is style control. And I really, really want to fix that. And it's going okay so far, but I would love the model to provide super artists out of the directly in the model.
Okay.
So you will have tags that may say, style 3D number 55 or whatever, right? And if you use that tag, and I love my special tags in the model, it will consistently give you a specific style that would not be a replication of a specific artist, but it may kind of be in a ballpark of like a couple of similar artists doing
Okay.
similar
Yeah.
styles. So you will have much stronger control.
Mhm.
So I think that feedback has been heard and known and accepted. And now it's just the technical part of getting that done,
Sure.
which is not very simple. That's why you will see that it's not really being done in other models. So I hope it will work out, and maybe it will kind of ignite desire for other models to do, which Pony has been doing somewhat successfully.
Right.
And going back just a little bit to the whole artist thing, uh, Novel AI, which
Hmm.
were they're good friends and they helped in the early days of Pony Diffusion, which, by the way, caused another controversy because someone found that I worked with Novel AI like 2 years ago, and they made all of this like idea that Novel AI is behind, like in the shadow, behind the closed doors, telling me what to do and not to include artists or something. But then they released their new Fury model, which, by the way, really, really good. And this whole section about ponies in their announcement, which definitely warms my heart. But they removed the artists. So there are no artists in that
Okay.
model too now.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
and I was reading comments for the announcement on Civic Twitter, and there was someone saying like, "Hey, look at Novel AI. They're not removing artists. I have bad news for you, my man. They are unfortunately totally removing them."
Wow. Wow. Interesting. Let me move on real quick. I've got one here that a lot of people are interested to know. This was another like probably the second most asked question. So let's not beat about the bush, so to speak. Um, Pornography. You've seen the way, you go to civitai.com, you've seen the way that Pony is often used. Does it match what people are making with it? Does it match the expectations that you had for the model when you released it? or have you been surprised at the levels of the kind of content that people create with it, or were you expecting it to be different than how it's turned out?
Oh boy, what a question. But let me talk about controversies a little bit. I caused another one, although small, yesterday or the day before yesterday, that I went to the V6 page and I was obviously blasted by the amount of expected content.
Right.
And I said, well, you know what? I show this page to a lot of people. I better go and like select stuff that I want and I don't want. So I pinned
Yeah.
a couple of images and I hid what I thought, my personal settings, and I hid all of the X-rated content.
Ah, I see.
And then
Yeah.
I woke up to like 50 comments of people asking what happened. Like, did I remove all of the content? Did I censor the model? And I'm like, oh man, I thought that was my personal settings, not the
Ah,
model settings.
yeah. So what Astralite is talking about here, Twitch, is gallery settings on Civitai. So if you post a model and you scroll to the bottom and you're the owner of it, the model, you can kind of define what content you want others to see posted to your galleries. You can pin images now. That's a new thing that just came out this week or last week. You can now pin images or posts which you think are particularly, relevant, or yeah, to your model up at the top, and you can also hide images that you don't want to be shown, and that's fine. It's your model page, it's your model. You can hide these images, and at no point are they actually hidden. There's a big button right at the top that says, "Hey, some of these images have been hidden from the gallery. If you want to see them, click here." So the users, you can get right through and you can see what has been hidden. It's not like they're completely removed. But I can understand that you did get a little bit confused and thought that you were hiding, you're setting your own personal preferences for viewing, for sure. That's happened before. We have had support tickets about that. So,
Yeah, I think the confusing part is that you have things like the personal, like sorting order and then something, and
yeah.
then the content is hidden under a cogwheel, but they're in the same block.
Yep.
Although I really appreciate that, and I was able to follow, like fine-grained control is now been applied, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
I really like the pinning option. Although, and sorry, this is not like the right time for feedback, but
Go ahead.
I'll forget about this. Can I get more pins? Like there are like 6 or something you can get, and I'm fine with
Oh,
images being picked up randomly. It's just like there are so many cool pictures to pick from,
yeah.
and I
I
have only a
didn't.
few.
I didn't actually know that there was a limit to the number you could pin. So that's good information. I'm going to note that down. I've learned something today.
Um, yep, but back to your spicy question. So it wasn't anything that I did not expect, although
Hmm.
the scale of it was definitely
Right. Right.
unexpected. I've been running our Discord for like 2 years before we became popular on Civit, and we do allow both safe for work and not safe for work content, although in a very like constrained places that are dedicated to that. And the stats for our Discord was about 40% of content was not safe for work and about 60% of content was safe for work. Because pony fans do like their nice looking ponies that are not necessarily undressed. And then when I shipped to Civit, and then I started looking at the ratio, it was much more extreme,
Hmm.
which I'm not surprised by generally the fact that people use it for adult content, because anything that is capable of producing such content and is of high quality
Yep.
will absolutely be used
Oh yeah.
for
100%.
this type of content.
Yeah.
It's just there's no way to escape that, and I'm totally fine with that. Like I think if people are happy and if that bring them joy and if they can do whatever they want with these models, please do. I'm happy for you. There are some things like one of the reasons why Pony has only cartoons is that I do not want to deal with real humans.
Hmm. Yep.
There are another can of worms, or many can of worms related to that.
Oh,
So I'm like,
absolutely.
okay,
Yeah, but
I'm not safe for work with cartoons, whatever.
right.
That's
Yeah, no, we
so.
found that that's speaking to that. We have found the same with Civitai. So that's exactly why we have some of the policies that we do have. It's absolutely a can of worms there.
Yep. Yep. We had to spend so much time working on our own set of safety filters and automatic detection and reporting. And like, it's a never ending battle, even with just cartoons, so, or non-photorealistic stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, I don't want to even think how hard it gets with everything. But yeah, I think it's fine. It is definitely a little bit uncanny when you just see the ratio of content, and it makes it a little bit harder to show it to uh, some other people. That's why
Mm-hmm.
I went to my settings to try to tone it down a little bit without
Right.
realizing what I'm doing.
Fair.
Because when people ask me like, "What do you do?" and I do share my work with a few of people who know both my online and offline identity, and I would have to give them a lot of warnings before and
Right.
hide a lot of
Right.
stuff. So that's I think the only problem that I'm facing. But again, there are speaking of controversies again. I mentioned somewhere that one of the articles that I would be doing slightly more, well, let's call it air quote censorship, because again, in the data set that I have, you have to be careful. You have to like evaluate them to look for things that you may not expect to find them, and that's all I meant. I'm like, I'm gonna clean up the data sets to make sure that there's nothing really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And people freaked out because like, oh, you're gonna remove not safe for work content.
Right.
That's not happening. Like, you will get to V7. It will be completely free. It will have all of the not safe for work content that you want. Like, it's happening. It's so like, don't worry. All good.
I'm glad. I think that's going to be a relief for a lot of people to hear that for sure. But yeah, speaking of version 7, um, future. Let's talk a little bit about the future. So you have just told us there is a version 7. You posted some information on Civitai recently on your profile, um, with progress on how it's going, and I believe you're still in the early stages with the data set, all that prep work that has to be done. You talked about. Um, Question here is, it's going to be a hard act to follow. Do you feel like that you can upgrade it enough to make it, as exciting as version 6 was when it came out? Are we going to see a groundbreaking leap, or is it going to be stepping stones again, you think?
Uh, yeah, following up on V6 would be hard, that's for sure. Even if the model is amazing, I don't think it's possible to just have that level of exposure of
Right.
people getting excited about something happening. Because you were absolutely right when you said in the beginning that there'd been a little bit of stagnation in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
were early 1.5, and I think novel AI leaks like propagated a lot of model creation forward. And then 2.1 wasn't really that exciting. XL was for a very long time unexciting. So there was like a big window
Yeah.
of opportunities there. And when V6 came out, people got super excited because the first XL model, higher resolution, generally works okay, better language understanding. So yeah, following up would be hard. Uh, that's why I really hope that we will get Stable Diffusion 3, because
Mm-hmm.
by
Yep.
itself, it should, like everything that I know about the model so far, it should give us a really good bump in quality in just foundational model. And like, I'm still very optimistic. Stability is definitely in a tough place, and it's unclear what will happen in the future. But everything that I've heard so far, everything I've been told, is that it's real, it's happening, it will be out. It's just, I think they've underestimated the power of community a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. And 2.1 lacked a lot of tooling that was
Right.
necessary, and even Excel was kind of not that good. So I think they're trying very hard to ensure that it's done better this time. Also, again, compared to previous models, I know that a lot of people who fine-tune models and people who work on tools were invited into this closed program, and I'm definitely not invited
Oh,
into the Stable Diffusion 3 early access of any kind. I
neither am I.
wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised.
neither are
Yeah,
any of
yeah.
us at Civitai aren't, and it's actually very strange that they would think about how much that Civitai has pushed on Stability's models over the past couple of years, and yourself as well. It's
Mhm,
just
mhm.
yeah, it's very odd some of their decisions, but we have also heard the same as you. A lot of people, I could see them asking in the Twitch chat just there, is SD3 happening? As far as we know, and one of our um, employees was just in Japan at speaking at a conference, headlining a conference, an AI conference, and he had a meeting with the head of Stability AI Japan, who indicated that we would be seeing SD3 at the end of the month, end of this month. So everything that we know points towards weights uh, dropping at the end of the month.
Yep, yep. That's exactly the same information that I have. Unfortunately, I don't have any secrets to share. But if it doesn't work out, XL
Mm-hmm.
still has a lot of oomph in it.
Sure.
We can fine tune higher resolution images. So I went to 1024 pixels.
Yep.
Well, it's in reality 1 megapixel across 2 dimensions, but whatever. Uh,
Okay.
and you can go up about 1280. It's more memory, more time to train, but generally larger resolution, especially with these models. Using VAI is definitely, it's very helpful, and you can see quality increasing significantly. So going from 768 to 1024
Right.
was, in my eyes, like a very, very strong improvement. So worst case scenario, it's going to be another XL model,
Got you.
but there
So
seems to be.
just to
Sorry, go
clarify,
ahead. Mhm.
then, your intention is to train against SD3 when it drops for version 7.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think timing wise, if it comes out at the end of this month, it's going to be exactly when I have the data, which, to your early comment, not early stages. Nope, not at all. I think I'm like 90% done with the data set, which is a gigantic task on its own.
Wow.
It's much more time spent cleaning, preparing, running various tasks than actually trading.
Mm-hmm.
And as like a point of reference, for example, we are now. So I talked about style superiorities grouping,
Yep.
and I mentioned captioning. So captioning is a very critical thing, and one of the things that made V6 capable of what it's capable right now is that it was trained on both tags and natural language labels. And again, if you're unfamiliar, natural language just means describe the image with normal words. So like just say things.
Sure.
And uh, stable diffusion models, all stable diffusion models are actually kind of trained this way, but they are using Lion, which provides alternative descriptions for images that was scraped over internet, which works okay, but people are not really good at writing these descriptions.
Yep.
And if you start trading on other data, like I don't know, you go and like you scrape one of the Furibors or Derpibor or
Yep.
whatever, you only have tags. So majority of models that are follow-ups are tag-based.
Yep.
And if you have two characters and one of them have red hair and another have blue hair, you'll have a tag red hair, you'll have a tag blue hair, you'll have a tag two boys and one boy, one girl, whatever. It doesn't help model to learn which character is doing what, and the more complex interactions become, the more characters you have, the harder it is for model to understand. And again, it all kind of like gets into this one singular mush of concepts.
Sure.
So what we did for V6 is that we took half of our data set, only half because it was extremely expensive, and we trained another model that was able to caption images based on this text. Which, by the way, this is one of the secret sauces. Let me tell you a secret, which is not really a secret. I've been telling it again and again and again. But the reason why V6 had very good captions is that it was using both tags and a captioning model. What a lot of people do, they either use either use tags, or they take one of the stock visual large language models
Yep.
and they ask it to caption the picture,
Yes.
which works
Yep.
okay unless you're working with non-photorealistic content, complex interactions, and any kind of adult content. They're incapable of doing that completely. So you have this kind of like okayish captions, but they don't really help much. What you do instead, you give the model all of the tags and you ask it to caption taking these tags into account. And the quality of captions, it just goes through the roof immediately. It gets much, much better. So that's what we did for V6. And that's the reason why it understands interactions and like a lot of things that are
Sure.
uh, more complex really well. So that was, one of the big, big technological leaps, which was hilarious because roughly when we released V6 internally on our Discord is when the DALI 3 came out and DALI 3 paper came out. And that whole paper, if you just read it, it's like, we're OpenAI, we have all of the money in the world, so we just captioned a numerous amount of images, and I forgot, like they spent tens of millions of dollars on it or something.
Right. Yeah.
So it was like a lot of money, and we spent like a minuscule, tiny fraction, and I think we still got reasonably close because in many cases tags providing this context. And even if you don't have this tags, they're a really, really solid tagging model. So they're not capable of producing caption, but
Sure.
again, you can pair the caption and tags and you get really good caption. So if you're training your model, do that, please. Just take Cog or take Lava or take any models you like, and then ask it to caption your image with the tags as part of your prompt, and it will give you much, much stronger results in the end.
Wow.
But for V7,
Yep.
we want to have a much larger data set. That's one of the things I hope will improve the quality. So V6 was 2.6 million images that were filtered out of about 10 millions based on aesthetic scores. And for V7, I want to do 10 million images, or at least more than like 7 out of 30 million images of the
Oh,
total data set.
wow.
So,
That's a significant leap in
right.
data set size. That's yeah.
And
That's
it doesn't. Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm blown away. I'm blown away. Wow.
See, that's why I need a server rack to hold all of these images.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of, that's a lot of images. It's, I think, with all the supporting data, I am getting to 100 terabytes or something of data. So yeah,
Do
there are a lot
you
of hard drives.
do you host this? Do you have this server rack? It's not sitting in your garage, is it? You're paying for a data center, I
It's in my
presume.
garage.
It's
It's in
not.
my garage.
Oh my goodness.
My
That's
electricity bill is very expensive.
wow. So have the police raided your house yet, thinking it's a marijuana grow up? Have they
I mean, in California, no one cares.
oh
So
that's true,
this
right?
is at least one thing that I've got going for me.
Wow.
But yeah, so more images, and I really want to caption all of them. But we also have much stronger captioning model right now, which is also based on a lot of human feedback. So we caption a number of images. We go and we fix all of them by hand. We train a new model, and then we use this model to caption even more images, because now you have to do less changes because the model is better. And then you repeat it again and again and again. And at some point, your base model is really, really good. We still rely heavily on tags.
Hmm.
And that helps dramatically with character recognition, for example, because even big, large, excuse me, big beefy large language models, they don't know all the characters, or they were not trained to map the visuals to this character, so they're like a lot of weirdness. But you put a tag with the name of a character and they immediately pick it up and they do it really well. So we the captions, I should have brought some to demonstrate, but the captions are they're exceptional. They are so nice. I'm so proud of this whole process. They describe everything in detail. They understand character. They understand interaction. There's still a little bit of work that we need to do in complex multi-character interactions, especially for adult content. But it is really, really good already. And we have a lot of anchors. So we say, for example, on the left side of the image, on the right side of the image, to the left of the character, to the right of the character. So you will be able to compose your interactions much stronger by just describing relationship of who is where, and either in terms of relative position or
Wow.
position on the image. So I'm very excited with that. We have text recognition. So in V6, all the text was masked. So there would be absolutely no text in images of any kind.
Yep.
And because of that, the Stable Diffusion XL kind of capable of writing text, but it's a little bit limited.
Sure.
But it's enough. So we kind of killed that as part of the training. But V7, you'll be able to have comics. What is it called?
Like
Oh,
panels,
text.
text, yeah.
And, text bubbles.
Oh, bubbles. Okay, yeah.
Getting bored. Yeah, so you'll have text bubbles. You'll be able to say like something written on T-shirt or just floating text around, or some of the other like things that we may have removed, like I don't know, hearts flying around you, or like whatever. All of this like tiny things that are
Wow.
now much better described. So that makes me very excited. It is not really possible to predict how well this is going to behave until we actually train the model.
Sure.
But if you look at some of the Stable Diffusion 3 examples, you will see that they have very similar pattern. They clearly also fine-tuned something, and I think they're using COG for their captioning. So I think generally, if we get Stable Diffusion 3 with already this very strong captioning base, we apply our captions and we do not mess the high learning rate training as we did for V6, we should have just generally very strong model in terms of composition understanding. And then because we only describe elements but not their style, hopefully the super artist thing will work out, and it will also help us save a lot of description, because again, if you look at Stable 3 captions, they do like to describe the feel of the scene and the colors and style.
Sure.
We're not going to have that. Well, residual from the base model, but not
Okay.
really focused. So you'll be able to put like a style tag, just use a bunch of talkings or a few talkings, and then describe the scene in detail. And it will just work out. And hopefully that will get people excited. I
It
hope. So,
sounds, the limited knowledge that I know that you've shared with us, I'm already stoked. I'm sold on this. But one thing I want to go back to real quick is you mentioned that captions are looked at, a human touch on these captions. Do you have a team that do this, or is some of this community driven? Do you have volunteers that help you out here?
it's a mix. The captioning project existed for a very long time, and we tried to do this a couple of times. We had completely human level, like you start from scratch and you just caption things about a year or two ago, and this is what was used to improve the V6 performance. And it was clear that people are slow,
Yeah,
well, compared to machines,
of course.
and not consistent,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yep.
And also, there have been a lot of progress in the visual large language model space. So right now we stopped doing that, and we have a very small set of people who are aligned in how they caption, so we can kind of have the same style, and we just go through hundreds of captions and try to improve that, which, by the way, is an improvement on its own, because a lot of tasks that were done for V6, I just had to do them alone because I wouldn't trust anyone. Like the aesthetic scoring
Yep.
system, I just sat there and like hand-picked ratings for 20,000 pictures over like a few weeks, and that was very boring and very mind-numbing process, which paid its dividends. But having a few people who are super helpful and super aligned is just
Sure.
it's a it's so amazing. And getting there. And I know it may sound stupid, but this type of organizational work where you have a lot of people on your Discord, for example, right?
Mhm.
And then you have to pick up maybe five who can commit, who are and who understand the assignment, who can produce significant amount of images or captions, and you need to motivate them, and you need to constantly work with them. It's completely non-technical,
Mhm.
but if you want to run any kind of big project, you have to deal with all of that. You have to be a product manager at some point,
Yep.
and it takes a lot of time. And when it finally clicks, it's extremely beneficial. But it also so much energy spent on that. It's insane.
Oh, absolutely. That just sounds a crazy amount of work. Wow. Now that's actually you're leading into my next question there, which is coming close to the wrap up here. But um, advice for people who want to do what you've done. What pitfalls, what traps would you, um, recommend that think people avoid? You talked there about getting a team and there's a project management element in it. That's great information.
Yep.
Are there any things that if you could go back to the start before you ever picked up um, any tools,
Mhm.
what would you do differently, and what mistakes would you avoid?
Oh, I think I did all the mistakes, all the possible mistakes. So, in that regard, Pony has been nothing but just me figuring out things and like being dumb all the time. But that's probably one of the strengths of the project is that every time you do something dumb, you learn.
Yep.
And if no one did things right around you, and you're kind of the first person to do things in a dumb way, but you learn from that, that's net positive. So just keep on documenting. If you documented something, it's an experiment. It's not just you
Okay.
being dumb.
Yep.
So just keep experimenting, and eventually things will work out. Uh, if you if you have access to compute, invest into that. There is just a lot of like extra work that you think will be cheaper if you just do it cheaper initially, and it
Mm-hmm.
turns out to be much more expensive. And a good example of that was, for example, using Vast AI, which by itself very, very cheap. But then when you start like transferring gigabytes of data and like dealing with your machines expiring, or just like a lot of this infrastructure work, you realize that it actually not that cheap. Like for some tasks it's amazing, but
Right.
like for this particular set. And then when we were able to switch to local trading, and I bought a bunch of GPUs for doing things locally, that was so much more helpful, even if it was a bigger investment upfront. And this is unfortunately another problem, is that doing this is kind of expensive. And even if you have know-how, getting the necessary equipment is hard. And I'm very privileged in a way that I live in an expensive area, and everything is kind of scaled
Sure.
accordingly, and the salaries accordingly. Like if you are somewhere not in United States, and the 4090 costs like
Oh.
a car,
Yep.
it's insane, right? So uh, Colab is an amazing alternative, and like if you can do things in Colab, go for it. VestAI and RunPod, and I don't know, I kind of said that VestAI may not be the best option, but like if you have no other options,
Sure.
these services that allow you to use someone's garage are exceptionally useful. And if you can, just find friends, right? Like a big reason why Pony worked out was after a lot of effort and a lot of work, finding someone who was able to help you. And I think there are a lot of people who can help you, even if you don't have your resources, but you need to prove that you can do something. So you start small and you try building things up. And if these things are good, you will get your community, you'll get your support, but it is painful. And
I can imagine.
unfortunately, yeah, there are probably better ways. And this is why I think I've made even more mistakes than in technical part, is that this was the first time for me like building a community
Right.
of any size. So I probably did a lot of stupid mistakes, and like probably not promoted enough, and probably not like just like collaborated with other people who care, which is something we're trying to fix now. But we definitely were like hidden for a very long time. So, but if you have access to resources, well, give them to me first of all. I would take. I like it. It feels like we have all of the compute in the world. It's so insufficient. So, for example,
Right.
just the captioning task alone, my estimate right now is 10 GPU years on a single 4090. So, if we have 10 4090s, it's going to be
That's
only 1 year.
right. Wow. Better
So,
get started,
like,
right?
yeah. So there are definitely like I would never say no to an extra GPU or a server rack of some kind. And this is kind of, I still hope that maybe one day there would be some hardware company, maybe Nvidia will say like, hey, let me help you because like
Sure.
this been completely self-funded so far. But back to the advice. Uh, the only part where I'm very certain, and this is where I would definitely say just follow this advice, is that while models are critical and better models are critical and bigger models are critical, and you can get a lot of benefits from going as far as you can in terms of scale and using like state of the art models, data is still the king. And in V6 or any Pony version is a good testament to that. I, with all of the mistakes done during the trading, with all of the other issues with the model, it's being carried by the amount and the quality of data that was put into it. So build your data sets, build tools to process your data set. That's another thing. So there's something that's not really visible because we don't share it, but um, I have the whole like backend dedicated to reviewing images, captioning them, drawing like bounding boxes on things that you want to mask, comparing things, searching images. So like, and that spanned, that required probably more time than training a model. So if you look at all of the time distribution, it's like 30% of on all of this data sets, 30% of all of this pooling, 30% on trading, and whatever left is just being dumb and like losing time. But having these tools, and unfortunately, if you want to build these tools, you'll have to learn how to build them. So they're like,
Right.
you want to be a machine learning engineer, but now you're building front ends and like building websites to handle things because oh, I want my friends to be able to help me with captioning, and you think like this is great because I will be able to be if I was doing it alone and now I have two more friends,
Yeah.
it's 3 times faster. And then you realize, oh, but I need to host it somewhere, I need to get a server, I need to learn maybe Docker, oh,
Yep.
I need a HTTPS support because they can open the website otherwise. So like you end up wearing a lot of hats that
That's
I
yeah.
don't think people anticipate when they start because you're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna put some images, I'm gonna build cool stuff. That's one of the reasons why I kind of like this whole concept of making things easier for people, like what Civitai is doing, for example, with LoRa trading, right?
Mhm.
You
Yep.
really don't have to deal with a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, the deeper you go into the model building, the less people use this and the
Right.
less likely you will have anything prepared for you, so you will have to build it on your own or find people that will help building you, and then you again get into the product management area, which has its own issues. But yeah, data absolutely critical. The amount of work that's been done on the data in the background before it gets to the model is equally or more important than the model itself. You cannot build obviously a good model without a good model in the first place, but you absolutely can build a better model with having better data. And there's this whole garbage in, garbage out concept. It's
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely true. It's absolutely true, especially if you don't do trickery like what we do in V6 with all the score tags, for example. You have to realize that your model generally is an average of all the data. Bad
Yep.
data
Yep.
goes in, the average is not good. There's just no way around it. It's just how machine learning works.
Sure. Wow. That has been fantastic advice, phenomenal advice for anyone out there who wants to try this themselves. And speaking of, you're, all the way through this, you're obviously incredibly passionate about this project. It's been going on for multiple years now, and you've spent a lot of your own money. You ever get tired? Do you ever feel like you're burning out and you want to do something else? And if so, what do you think you would do? I mean, even after looking to the future, after version 7, you've got all that compute sitting in your garage now. What's the future for that? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to do something else with it?
I've definitely had moments where I would feel down or tired. Uh, Having a community that both hyping you up, but also understands that you can get tired and respect that.
Right, right,
I think that's been critical. Again, I cannot stress enough how much I own the community. They've been the driving force, and they've been the source of energy for me to keep on going. But fundamentally, I do enjoy doing this a lot, and that's why all this money has been spent. It is something that I like on just personal level. I like ponies, unsurprisingly. I think it's a interesting phenomena, and it's a cool phenomena. I like that I can play with and build state-of-the-art stuff out of my garage. That's definitely a fun thing, and being able to shame some big corporations, just make fun of them. That's always
right,
adds a little bit spiciness and energy to that. Uh, I think in the end, like maybe V7 will be the last model, but not in a way, not in a negative way, like not as like, oh, I'm done with it, but
right.
more in a way that I will finally be able to get what I want out of it, which all this time has been, I want to animate talking faces. And I want to animate talking faces because I want to do characters that talk with you, that interact with you, because I'm a big believer that in a few years from now on, we will get into this very interesting and exciting world where every piece of content that's ever been created in the past or will ever be created in the future will turn into this interactive experience. You'll be
Right.
watching your Amazon video or on your Prime or YouTube video or playing old video game, and you will have a button, a Go interactive button that
Yep.
will take that thing, maybe just as a video, as an image, as a textual concept, and turn it into personal adventure, right?
Right.
You were just watching a movie, and now you're in a movie. And again, we don't know how well it will work. Maybe it will be just a dialogue with a character. Maybe it will be a text adventure, a visual novel, or OpenAI has Sora model that capable of producing video. Maybe we'll have actually interactive, uh, completely customizable worlds in which we can participate. And again, as a
Yep.
video game, as an adventure of some kind. I think it will happen eventually. Like we have a lot of pieces that needs to be there, and a lot of tag that is required, and we will eventually build the remaining stuff. And I think it will be hilarious, but also kind of cool if a chunk of that future is pony flavored. Just again because I find it fun when people talk about it with serious faces. So I would really like to build toward that. I would like to be part of this process because for many years I think I've been disappointed in uh, technological progress. We've got a
Mm.
lot of cool stuff. Like we've got a lot of mind-blowing things. We've got internet and mobile phones, and then as with any like industry, you get this periods of hypergrowth,
Right.
and then after that you have periods of commercialization and like people figuring out how to integrate that. And it's very fun to be in this periods of hypergrowth. And
Absolutely.
I think with AI, we're finally hitting another one of these gold mines. So hopefully, you never know because you have to live through this period of time to look back and say, oh, this is where things actually became a real thing. But looking at progress in Gen AI in the last like 3-4 years, it's crazy. And I
Yep.
would really like to experience that firsthand. So I think you will see more pony content, hopefully video generation, interactive characters, and generally yes, user generated content tooling
Hmm.
to make this whole process more interactive. So as long as I have energy and money to keep
Right.
buying hardware, I think there's going to be a lot of cool tech. We will see. We'll see how it goes, but uh, I hope we will see V7 and then hopefully some evolution, which probably going to be focused either on video or character interactions. And after that, who knows? Like, it's moving so fast that it's really
Right.
hard to figure out what's the next thing.
Absolutely. Wow, we feel the same. We feel the same. And yeah, it's a privilege, I feel, to be involved in any small way. And you're leading the charge in one particular area. But I think for all of us, it's a privilege to be knowledgeable and to be able to use this tech like we are right now. So fantastic! Thank you so much. I appreciate all your insights that you've given us. Um, I am blown away by how much you've put into this model and this project. I had some idea of it before I came into the stream, but I had no idea that you've spent so much, emotionally, and monetarily. You've put blood, sweat, and tears into this project, and it really shows. And I think a lot of us, I can speak for everyone, where we are very appreciative of what you've done and the community that you've built as well. So fantastic. I'm going to wrap up now. Is there anything you'd like to add? Any final comments or questions for me?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. Again, I have to reiterate it, but without my community and my now extended Civic community, none of that would have been possible. So thank you, everybody. Deepest, deepest thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's really hard to stress how much it helps to have people who care about your work, be it positive or negative, doesn't really matter. People generally don't care about things. So when someone has an opinion on your work, it's always just so nice. It's very motivating. It's very, very nice. So
Absolutely.
again, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here and being able to talk about Pony and just interact and have fun like this.
Yeah,
It's been
it's
great.
it's
So
been great to get
thank
you
you.
on, and we'd love to have you back. Maybe when we get closer to the V7 drop, or after it, when you've had a chance to look at the models,
Yeah.
you could give us an update on how things are going.
We should have a release party. Oh, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with this, is another thing that's probably worth mentioning. Civit has been always the primary destination for Pony models since like V4. We do, when we release new models, we give the early adopters a little bit of lead time to try it. But the model will be in early access on Civit when it's done. So this will be the first place you need to go to actually experience it where we get out. And obviously then out for everybody. Let
Wow,
me reiterate, for free, for free. Everybody will get it for free. This is
wow,
happening. Don't worry about that. But very last thing is, if you are passionate about Gen AI or generally machine learning or just technology, just go and build things. Like, even if they're small, even if the theme of the thing is kind of stupid and people don't care or make fun of you, just go and build things. It's so rewarding, even if it never goes into, like, I've built so many stuff in the past that never became anywhere close to the scale of Pony, and I had still so much fun, and all of that was helpful in a way that now I'm having my 15 minutes of fame, and it's great. Hopefully they will continue, but we'll see. So just build things. It's cool.
absolutely. That's words of wisdom there for sure. There's something about getting hands on and building something that's just good for the soul for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks very much. I really appreciate it. Um, and to all the viewers, everyone who joined us on the stream today, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your support, both on the Twitch stream and on civitai.com. For more information about Pony Diffusion, I'm going to paste the Purple Smart AI Discord link in the chat right now. They have a great community. Head on over there and get the latest news straight from AstraliteHeart when he posts updates. Otherwise, you can tune in with me. I'll be on tomorrow for the regular office hours, and we'll get our next interview queued up as soon as we can. But yeah, thanks again to AstraliteHeart. That was awesome to hear everything that he's up to, and I'm so excited for the update closer to version 7.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye bye, guys.